Hi, everyone. My name is Sarpomaa. I'm currently a junior here at NYU Gallatin studying politics and media. And this past summer, I had the opportunity to work with African communities together. So forward ever, backwards never, West African immigrants in New York City. So on my first day working at African Communities Together, or ACT, or ACT, I was asked why I chose this organization. ACT, or ACT, works to uplift African immigrants in New York City. They do this by providing legal support and advocating for African immigrants currently in the city. As a West African immigrant myself, I understand firsthand the struggle, the pain, the confusion that comes with moving and relocating to another country. I also talked about how I had never, in my 10 years living here, experienced working in a professional and academic setting with other African immigrants. At my first member meeting at ACT, I understood the importance of being in a place of people that look like you and understand where you come from. So this summer, these are some of the research questions I had. How does the yearn for social and political belonging inform the experience of African immigrants in the US? How do African immigrants define their immigrant experience? How does moving to a new environment shape oral history telling and traditions within African communities? And what does life look like for people that uproot their lives to move across the world? Some of the goals of my research this summer was to help with ACT's current podcast by interviewing African immigrants in the city, mapping out places that matter to Africans in the city, and conducting a literature review of works that were provided to me by my supervisor. Throughout the summer, I thought of this quote a lot. During my interviews, during my meetings, a certain type of migrant, the sort that travels without passports or visas, without any particular place to go, making a new life wherever he or she happens to be, challenges the system of global apartheid and claims the right to move freely in defiance of the regime of state borders. Owen Sikone. 2 decades ago, when my own mother moved here from Ghana, she too was defying this regime of state borders and challenging the system of global apartheid. One of the major stories I learned from working at ACT was the story of 125th Street and the history of Africans claiming space in New York City. In mid-October 1994, the 125th Vendor Association, which was an organized group of African American and West African traders, faced a closing by Mayor Giuliani. The market, which to outsiders looked like an informal organization of different traders, was actually, from an inside perspective, very organized. This market was an example of Africans making space for themselves in a place that historically prevented them from doing so. They were able to transform the 125th Street corridor into the African market, a place where they could call home. African immigration in New York City and beyond. I thought a lot during my interviews about the idea of this American dream, how to many outsiders, America is looked at as a place to progress and move up in society. I noticed that throughout my interviews, the people I talked to cared a lot about this American dream, and it inspired their move here, regardless of if their move was a positive or negative thing. After arriving here, a lot of people experience transnationalism, which is essentially a connection to cultural preservation. When they come here, they're able to connect to the people back home by either still talking to them or sending back goods and services. I also learned that assimilation in new environments looks different for different immigrants. Some immigrants don't look at this as a goal, don't look at assimilation as a goal. Some takeaways I have from my interviews that I conducted was that the experiences of West Africans in New York City differs. Africans in New York City are not a set monolith. I also learned the importance of finding a community. For many of the immigrants I talked to, they came to America not knowing anyone or anything. But finding an organization like ACT was essential and important in their ability to mobilize and move up in society. Many immigrants depend on organizations like ACT. I talked to a woman in Staten Island whose story affected me in a way that I didn't think would. Talking to her, I learned that she had moved here because she had lost everything back home, and she had depended on ACT to help her to find a place in American society. But she found that ACT couldn't provide the legal services she needed. And I realized then that even though organizations like ACT are dedicated to helping immigrants find a way here, it's not always successful for them. Sometimes they're not able to provide the help that every single immigrant needs. In the future, I hope to create a map of places in New York City that matters most to African immigrants. I also hope to create space for oral history telling to be used as a tool of cultural preservation, instill a sense of community within African diasporic communities, continue to gather stories of African immigrants through interviews. Thank you.